Floor up real quick. Okay. Today, Connor O'Day from Dale is going to be presenting on the, so I'll just turn it over to him. He's going to, on the state plan on aging. So thank you, Connor, for joining us today. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Vermonters, for the invite to present on this today. So bear with me for, Vermonters, are you able to allow me to share my screen? I see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
We're going to make you co-host. It will take us a second, but we'll get you taken care of. There you go. Yes.
Right. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, I'm going to start this presentation and get into. All right. So again, thank you for this opportunity to begin talking to folks about our 2023 to 2026 draft of the state plan on aging. So we anticipate that the draft will be available to the public starting tomorrow. It'll go online and we will just be sharing, starting off informally with our networks, emails to that link. And then we have a press release that will be going out that is currently going through AHS approval. So I'll touch on this a little bit later in the slides, but we will have the official public comment period opening April 11th. But we want to make sure people have opportunities to read it in advance. So as we launch into this, again, the state plan on aging is required by the Older Americans Act. And so this is periodically being every 4 years that the department has to put together its state plan, and we submit to the Administration for Community Living the plan for approval and then annual progress. It's the vehicle that allows us to receive our Older Americans Act funds. So it's every state has to produce this, and it is really the blueprint for how we're going to utilize those funds over the next 4 years and how we'll be putting together our comprehensive system of service and supports for older Vermonters. Just a quick timeline of review, and I apologize, that's fall of 2022. So we, in collaboration with the area agencies on aging, did our older Vermonters and family caregivers survey. Those were 2 distinct surveys, and they were in part to be informing the needs assessment that both the state and the area agencies on aging were doing. The AAAs were producing their area plans and utilizing that information from the surveys and other mechanisms of doing needs assessments. And in collaboration, the surveys, these area plans, these stakeholder meetings that we've had, environmental scans, have all come together to really inform our work in this plan. And so we, again, developed our draft, which is going out for public comment. We will then, based on those public comments, make any appropriate revisions. And then our final submission to ACL is July 2022, with the plan starting in October. And then our annual progress reports, as required under the Older Vermonters Act, will now be submitted to, in addition to ACL, Vermont House Committee on Human Services and the Senate Committee on Health, Welfare, and the Governor's Office. And those will be due in January. So the components of the plan, as you're looking through it, you have the executive summary, and then you have the narrative section, which breaks down your demographic changes, environmental scan, the main results and findings of the needs assessment. We have descriptions of our network, vision for the state, and then a big part of the plan, and really a major component in particular that ACL is looking at, are our goals, objectives, measures, and outcomes. That's really how are we going to know that we're achieving what we want to achieve over the next 4 years, and where within these goals and objectives, where are we headed? Where is it steering us? And then lastly, we have the interstate funding formula, which is how funds are divided amongst our 5 AAAs and their service areas, and the OAA assurances, which is really the requirements that those assurances are produced by ACL, and they are what we're held to in terms of the standards and practices of being a state unit on aging and managing Older Americans Act funds. Every new administration, so we've got the Biden administration, which was new for this state plan cycle, they produce their kind of key topic areas, their focus of what they want states to be kind of aiming for in their state plans. It's part of the instructions and part of the guidance. So every plan, it's standard to have a focus on your core Older Americans Act programs. And so for those who aren't familiar, those are support services, nutrition, disease prevention, health promotion, caregivers, and elders' rights programs. The other focus was coronavirus, COVID-19 response. They were quick to point out that it highlighted the importance of the service system that's made by the Older Americans Act. And it was this service system it brought to light the enhancement and awareness of social isolation, increased awareness of the need to plan for future disasters, and how well our network, that being AAAs, that being local community service providers, were able to respond during COVID-19. And so how do we take that momentum and how do we continue it? Equity is really something that you probably have seen in many areas that the Biden administration is highly keen and focused on. And so really the OAA has always put a spotlight on serving greatest economic and social need, but it really is putting a heightened degree on really ensuring that equity in all aspects of plan administration and all persons being served under Older Americans Act. Looking to expand access to home and community-based services. There's a big push for what's called that rebalancing of long-term care with community-based care. We see that with our Medicaid long-term care, but also in OAA really being the foundation of a lot of these community supports. And very important to our community-based service system. And then caregiving, that being unpaid caregivers and really enhancing services and supports for caregivers. The recognition of how important they are to our service system, how important they are to helping those live at home, and really the strains that are placed on families, and recognizing that and being responsive to that. So as we get into our key goals and objectives, again, this is developed based on the guidance that's provided to us, what I just went over, and what we find in our needs assessment process. So we're looking to promote the health, safety, and well-being of older Vermonters. This is our area of focus for those core Older Americans Act programs. And so really, when we looked at the plan as an opportunity to bring to light things that were pointed out in the needs assessment from conversations that we've had through environmental scans, through stakeholder engagement, it was a recognition that we could really expand the presence of the Older Americans Act services, meaning people's awareness of it, people wanting to access it. We want people to enter these service delivery systems and get in touch with our service providers earlier, the better, in terms of before it becomes crisis. Start building relationship and get in touch with what's going on in the community, where the supports are, so we can really help with that planning and advanced planning. We want to make sure that within the service system, we've got that person-centered case management, which it can be so important to really helping people guide through what's available to them, how they access it, and helping really, again, kind of that planning process and what can be a bit of a tricky system when you're not really aware of what's available or how to navigate. And a big part of our service structure is nutrition. That's one of the core services, and we see it as being, such an important part of the health of older Vermonters and being able to make a difference in people's lives. So looking to utilize that to improve the health status of older adults. Utilizing our caregiver programs to support them really where they are in their caregiving journey. Talking about trying to get people early in that journey. But people find themselves in different situations at different times, and it can change overnight. So we want to make sure our system is really able to support people at any point in that, and be able to offer those packages of services, and also be really honed in on supporting the caregiver and recognizing what they're doing and the impact that it's having on them. And then lastly, as it relates to our elders' rights, we want to make sure that we're preventing and protecting our most vulnerable adults. Again, specifically financial exploitation. This is a big part of our Attorney General's work. We've seen great collaboration in a number of community-based organizations to increase awareness and impact of this. And it's unfortunately the fight that never stops, because these types of exploitations and how they happen are ongoing and always ever changing. So we want to make sure we're on top of that. Quickly moving through to the next goal, we have, this is our area of equity, so inclusive of all older Vermonters, bolster our training and collaboration across state departments to strengthen the Aging Network's response to trauma and mental health. This, again, it comes out of a lot of the guidance from ACL, but things that we're seeing in other areas of focus, particularly around, what has the last couple of years done to folks? That social isolation, what does that impact? Trauma can be on many different levels, and we want to make sure that people are informed about kind of what approaches to take to understand and recognize where people are and to be trauma responsive. And then determining the services for an effectiveness of programs, policies, and services for all Vermonters, including our LGBTQ+, Abenaki, and American population. So, when you see the strategies, that's really around more intentional planning, outreach, trust building, and really getting into where the community leaders are for these populations and starting to build those bridges to be more and really building upon a lot of the work that is happening currently and to enhance that. Then lastly, we want to bolster the recognition and support of our unpaid caregivers in Vermont. This is, again, building off of the guidance and enhancing upon the goal that you saw in the objective that was in goal 1, increasing the public awareness, increasing our collaboration across the Aging Network to support grandparents raising grandchildren. That's a big part of our caregiver population that doesn't always get quite the recognition in terms of the headlines of that we see with dementia caregiving, but it is very real in Vermont, and we want to make sure that we've got the supports available. And then increasing awareness of social isolation and available resources to combat the adverse effects. This being kind of a dual objective in terms of social isolation as it relates to all people, but specifically the higher risk for caregivers. Once they start to take those roles on, once it starts to become a little more intense, what that can mean on their social engagement and what that does to personal life and the impacts that it has. So that's related resources, and I'll share this out with Rep Noyes so he can have it available and can maybe share it out to the email list, this PowerPoint, as it relates to some of these additional resources available that were used. And with that, if you have any questions, I would love to start conversation and hear from folks.
Great, thank you, Connor. And yeah, so if before probably noticed that we have a group of people here with us today. It's so nice to see people joining the Older Vermonters Caucus today. So thank you for being here in person. Actually, these are all folks from Cove and who helps us with our Zoom account every week. So thank you for your support there as well. So yeah, if we have any questions, Representative Wood.
Good morning and afternoon, I guess it is, and good afternoon to the other fellow legislators who are here today. We have probably the most fellow legislators than we've had here in person and on Zoom, so thanks for being here, everybody. My question is, Connor, this may be something that you can answer or maybe something to bring back. We just had a full morning of testimony on Alzheimer's and related conditions, and pretty eye-opening information, and a lot of it relates to some of the things that you have as goals here in the plan to be submitted, like awareness of resources. Pretty much nobody who gave testimony this morning was aware of any resources that they could get through the area agencies on aging, or they didn't have a positive experience when they tried to contact them. And I'm also thinking about this group of individuals who are sort of caught in the middle. They don't qualify for Medicaid, so they don't have access to choices for care. And Medicare doesn't necessarily provide the support that they need, or they have younger onset dementia. And I'm just wondering if there is any consideration being given in the renewal for the global commitment in the investment area, where you don't have to be eligible for Medicaid, to things like service coordination or case management for people experiencing, cognitive issues as they age, or even folks with younger onset.
As it relates specifically to the global commitment renewal, Rep. Wood, I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Yes. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I realize it's sort of at the 11th hour when it comes to global commitment that's being negotiated now, but it seems like such a wide gap that nobody has identified for global commitment. So that's a little concerning.
Yeah, I will follow up on that and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, which I will point out will be our topic on the 27th. So I've been trying to schedule someone around the Medicaid waiver renegotiations and global commitment. So yes, someone should be here on the 27th for that. Just want to point that out. Are there any other questions people have for Connor? Andrea, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Connor, I'm curious why in the inclusion language, there is a listing for LGBTQ plus community, Abenaki and New Americans, but no mention of the BIPOC community. As a Chittenden County resident, that's definitely something that we want to pay close attention to, and I would urge you to consider adding that into that list. Thank you.
Yeah, great comment. Thank you very much. And I have to admit, it might have been my error in terms of how I put the slide together, if that's in our plan, but if it's not, I'll make sure it gets included. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more questions?
I got questions in the room here.
Oh, sorry, I looked the other way. Not. Thank you. Go ahead.
Jim Holloway and here with Cove, but I noticed that one of the objectives was grandparents taking care of grandchildren, as you highlighted that out. So another hat I wear is Vermont Kin as parents, where that's what we do, is help folks like that. So I'm curious if you might speak a little bit more to what might be envisioned in achieving that objective.
Yeah, I think you'll sort of see a pattern in the plan as far as what the strategies lay out. The first steps for short-term outcomes, we certainly want to raise education. We want to raise awareness. And so that's both raising awareness of what's out there, programs such as which you mentioned, and the available resources. And then also raising awareness around just what these grandparents are going through, what this impact is, and that this is happening. And then secondly, through that, we want to certainly explore how we ramp up resources and make, so just quick example, the work that Cove and Ruby has been helping to do with, say, the lifespan respite program, and thinking about trying to get an increase in respite across lifespan, knowing that that would be something that would be beneficial to kinship caregivers. So, and then from there, long-term, how do we get to a point where we've got sustainable practices? So we go through raising awareness, raising education. We go through trying to boost resources and test out, what works well. How does it need to work in Vermont to maximize it and to get the best results? And then how do we ingrain that into our service system? And that's, I think, working collaboratively with partners such as Cove, senior centers, AAAs, people who interact with these individuals, folks on our DCF side of the state. So, and coming together to really formulate a sustainable system for working with grandparents who are going through this.
So,
Yeah, of course, Jim.
yeah, so I'd like to say that VCAP and Cove work together in this area, and VCAP is, or Vermont Kin as Parents, that is, we serve the whole state, and the questions that you're asking are the studies that we're doing, or we're also working on a video or more documentary and stuff like that. I'd just like you to keep in mind that that's we're the partner with DCF on that. So I'd love to know how we can help in that process.
Absolutely, and I look forward to that collaboration as we roll this plan out and get the work going. Because I think haven't been as actively involved, but certainly want to be.
Great, Representative Wood.
Connor, one of the things that I'm curious about, I'm not up to date on the federal appropriation under the Older Americans Act, and are we expecting to see an increase in that in any time in the near future? I know that there have been some COVID related, sort of, I guess I would call one-time funding. Do you expect to see any increase in the base funding for the Older Americans Act? And just curious about that.
Yeah, so our partners in DC, Advancing States, that really represent state units on aging and do a lot of the advocacy work around Older Americans Act. I think there's interest in wanting to see that raised. And I know for the area agencies on aging, their national group that represents them have put together, strong push for those increases to happen. But yeah, at this point, Redwood, it's probably too early to say whether we'll see it come through or not. That's to say the advocacy is there. The arguments are being made based on what you referenced in terms of that one-time supplemental COVID funding, that, based on that, we're now seeing what the base regular funding should be. So I think we have a lot of positive things happening in terms of good conversation about, why these increases are needed, what the funding level should be. It's, as I said, it's a little too early to tell exactly where it's going and whether we'll see those increases or not. And
is there any report that Dale has, or that the AAAs have put out with regard to how the COVID-related one-time funding has been utilized in Vermont for older Vermonters?
We haven't done a comprehensive summary, no. But that is certainly something that if were needed, that we would be able to produce.
I think you can anticipate that. So I think that would be helpful for us. It helps us to make the argument for ongoing funding in terms of what kind of supports and services that were provided in terms of their benefit to older Vermonters. So that would be very helpful, Connor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Deanna and Meg have their hands up.
Oh, we can't see it on the
Yeah,
screen.
you can't see it on
I'm
there.
sorry, you can't see it on the screen, so thank you for your
Deanna
help.
first and
Michelle.
then Meg. Yeah.
Thank you. Connor, maybe you're planning to do this already, but with the VAS camp call this afternoon, I'm hoping you can share a little bit about this and let senior centers and meal providers know how their feedback or how they'll be able to give feedback.
Absolutely. Yep. That was going to be part of the update.
Thank you so much. I figured probably, but thank you.
Yep. Happy to do it. Thanks.
Great. Meg, you have a question?
Hi, I just wanted to, pardon me, react. I am the representative for the actually Northeast region on US Aging, which is the advocacy organization for area agencies on aging that Connor referenced. And just Representative Woods, I just wanted to clarify the federal government only approved the budget that started last October, and we saw no increase, even though there was a tremendous amount of advocacy to significantly raise the amount of funding for Older Americans Act so that we could begin to breathe a little and envision how to support all of the different partners and components of our programs. That ask is now being pushed forward to the 2023 budget, but it's an election year. And so there's not a lot of hope from the perspective of the board that I'm on that will occur. So for this year, as I said, we just found out a few weeks ago that the budget had a very minor increase, not enough to make a difference in terms of programming.
That's unfortunate to hear, given Senator Leahy's status on, the budget committee. It's we'll have to work with that office while he's still there for FY24, I guess it would be.
Thank you for bringing that up, Meg. Thank you for bringing that up.
You're very welcome.
Okay, any other questions out there? You can raise your hand or virtual or
I don't see anybody.
any other questions in the room for Connor? All right. Great. Ruby, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we have a lot of people from Co-op here. Do you want to just introduce and say a few words while we're here?
Absolutely. So Co-op has been organizing a grassroots advocacy group of volunteer advocates for 3 years, 3 legislative sessions. And of course, the last 2 we were remote. And so we've been watching in the wings, and we were very excited to be able to come and join you all in person today. So if you see bright green around the State House today, those are our Grow Bold colors, which incidentally is the last color that the eyes lose as you progressively go blind. So there's a reason that the bright green color is used for a lot of aging facilities and visual representation. So we are representing our aging eyes and in that way. The Grow Bold team is actually designed around the concept that each individual has their own issues that they are interested and excited about that may not be the Cove issues. So the people that you see around the State House are here representing their own issues, their own interests, and Cove supports individual people to know how to advocate on something, to know how to engage in the legislative process on a particular bill. Of course, we do share our own policy priorities and we share the calendar each week. But I think Ken was in education earlier, and other folks are here advocating for kinship or housing or healthcare. Everyone really pursues their own interests with the support of Cove in that process. So we had, I think, 3 people had to leave. They were here earlier and will be hanging around, though I hear that the House floor has moved to a later time today. I'm not sure that we will have people here until 3 o'clock, but we are excited to be here in the State House and exploring different issues, though we are saddened a little bit by the room capacities. It makes it awfully hard to get in there and listen. But I wanted to welcome all of our grassroots advocates who are here learning and engaging in the legislative process with you all.
Great, thank you so much.
For being here.
Yeah, thanks for being here and your advocacy. It's makes our job easier as trying to make sure older Vermonters are not forgotten in our legislative process. So thank you. All right.
Did you give an update on 506 or 3 or whatever that number is?
The
Silver.
yeah, I did at the beginning.
Okay.
So just Representative Wood was asking me about the Silver Alert bill that is actually in House Government Ops. And we have in the Human Services Committee, we're going to probably attach it to the Alzheimer's bill, depending on the outcome of some testimony later this week. So hopefully
this afternoon.
This afternoon
At 1:15.
Yeah. So hopefully we can see that move this session as well.
What is the Silver Alert?
Much like Amber Alert, in the event that somebody is in need of a can't be found, that they can reach out to the public and to law enforcement and kind of make sure that people know that an individual is missing and look for the community's help to find that individual.
Yeah, and it's not only for older Vermonters, it's also for Vermonters who have any kind of cognitive loss or limitation. So for people with developmental disabilities, as well as people with mental health issues or older Vermonters. You probably shared that at the beginning, but some people weren't here. We're one of only 4 states that do not have such a system, which is not where we want to be. So we're going to hear from the Department of Public Safety this afternoon. And
law enforcement.
Right. Hopefully keep our fingers crossed that they don't say it's going to cost $1 gazillion, and because we will have to wait until next year if that's the case. But in any event, we're hopeful that we can put that on the bill.
Is it in the Alzheimer's bill?
That's where we are taking testimony and hope to amend the Senate 206 to add, we probably won't come up with a better name between now and then, but Silver Alert.
Is it 506?
No, it's 206.
206 is the Senate bill. The House bill is I
think it's like 503 or something like that.
Somewhere in there.
But
it's also entered in the Senate as well. So there is a bill in the Senate, but we're using the House bill.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Next week, we will be hearing from the Alzheimer's Association, maybe as 206 is on the floor. So good possibility for that as well.
Is next week Alzheimer's Day here at the State House?
Nope, it will be the following week. Yep. Representative Troiano?
Yeah, Dan, I wanted to give an update on the consumer protection bill
Thank you.
that's working its way through. It's attached, and we're having trouble defining these two massive bills, either 210 or 226 from the Senate. So we have actually been in negotiation with the governor, and we are hopefully going to get this consumer protection bill passed, which is a contractor registry. So the governor's proposal, it had been a trigger of $3,500 job, and the amount of $3,500 would trigger a registry, a need for a contractor to register. Since in this current year, about 200 complaints have been made and losses of about $2 million from folks. So the connection is that we know that, and I know personally that older Vermonters are often the target, and disabled people are often the target of these home improvement fraud cases. So the governor is suggesting that threshold be raised to $10,000, which is somewhat problematic because most of the consumer fraud happens at the rate of about $5,000. So in a compromise for that, the governor has suggested that we would hire 2 positions at the Attorney General's office. That would be ombudsman to handle complaints from citizens who are ripped off for less than $10,000. And the list that would be kept at the Office of Professional Regulation. If a fraud was verified against a contractor, then their name would go on with a check against it for not a good actor, and it would maintain a list of good providers. Yeah, Rudy.
Is there a reason for embedding, like, for example, the long-term care ombudsman is not embedded in state government, rather intentionally for a variety of reasons, but in part to ensure that there isn't any conflict of interest in their work? Is there a reason for embedding that in the Attorney General's office versus having it exist in a non-interested party?
Yes, because a fraud complaint is illegal. So having these 2 positions in the Attorney General's office would provide investigation arm and an adjudication arm that would be able to move forward on these bad actors and actually adjudicate against them in court if necessary. Where there would be there could be, and all along, restitution has been an issue because a judgment in small claims court, for instance, has no enforcement value. So you could get a $5,000 judgment in small claims court and never collect it because there's no one that's going to make sure that it's paid. So having this arm of the Attorney General's office to adjudicate these frauds could actually result in restitution ordered by the court and make some for these folks whole for the losses that they've had.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would just like to add to what Representative Troiano has said. I worked in the state's attorney's office, and I can't tell you the number of claims we got from, older residents who had been basically ripped off. And I know that there are probably a lot more who are embarrassed to come forward and say, I did this. I thought, this person was honest and I gave him the money and I never saw him again. So, it is a serious problem. So I'm glad to see that that we're going to go forward with this.
Yeah. Michelle.
And I also want to add that as a victim advocate with COVE, one of the things that I'm working with the Adult Protective Services and the Attorney General's office is not only do older Vermonters lose money, but I'm working with victims of scams and fraud because they lose more than money. They're losing dignity, they're losing pride, they're losing trust. As they age, they should not lose trust in other people and services. So And that's a huge issue. So it's not just money.
That's very true.
And so then they tend to isolate themselves even more. And that leads to self-neglect.
Point.
Good point.
Excuse me, I just wanted to clarify something, Representative Troiano, that you said about the enforcement. I've been hearing that there isn't, and I don't think it was just small claims court, but that there isn't enforcement of things that go to court, and it may be limited to small claims, but would the AG enforce the court orders? Is that what?
That really depends. Oftentimes restitution is ordered through probation. And again, if a criminal case materializes from this fraud, then in a disposition of that case could be a restitution could be ordered, and that person would remain under supervision until it was paid. So that's the best route, the best way forward to making citizens of Vermont that are ripped off whole again, because last year's bill we couldn't do that. Office of Professional Regulation can adjudicate these fraud cases, but they cannot mandate any kind of restitution or anything. So, but the list will remain. So any contractor in Vermont who takes jobs in excess of $10,000 will again have to register with the Office of Professional Regulations. So we will have the list of reliable contractors held by the Office of Professional Regulation. I brought that up 2 weeks ago because we were talking about outreach and how difficult it is to outreach to our older Vermonters to let them know that this list exists. Now, part of that list is planned once a fraud is substantiated against a contractor, then that is noted on that list as well. So you've got reliable contractors and you've got unreliable contractors, and ultimately they will pay the price of not getting any more work, in theory.
Do you happen to know what the ceiling is on small claims court?
Feelings in what respect? I mean, it's been
The ceiling.
the ceiling, $5,000.
5,000?
Yes.
5,000?
Yes. Yeah, that's presently what it is.
Joanne Ehrenhaus asked, can these cases get restitution through the Crime Victim Fund? And from what I understand, I do not believe so. I think Crime Victim Funds, what they reimburse for is counseling, transportation to courthouses, that sort of thing, but not reimbursement for money lost.
I would agree. I think that's accurate to say.
The actual crime.
Yep. Again, restitution would be made likely through some sort of a court order and not through the fund, but coming directly from the individual who was adjudicated perpetrating the fraud.
Well, unfortunately, likely doesn't have any insurance and going to be difficult to get money.
That is another issue. Now, liability insurance was part of the bill last year that was vetoed by the governor. So I think the registration, I haven't read all the way through it yet, but I think the registration probably would include liability insurance for those who are compelled to register.
And
so that would provide some, and again, we're getting into the higher end, but again, the price of materials at this point, $5,000 is now pretty close to $10,000 in a job. So, I think we would probably gather up a fair number of contractors that would end this registry, even at $10,000.
And Chip, how is the requirement to register going to be publicized to contractors? How will they know that they're required to register?
Office of Professional Regulation is intending on doing all of that. And again, there was a small penalty involved in failing to register. And when I reported that bill initially, we had the wrong section, if you recall. Representative Donahue calling out requiring a jail sentence for non-registration. Well, we fixed that, of course, but I think that word would get out. I mean, we were convinced that Office of Professional Regulation, OPR, was so intent on this and so psyched to get this going that I think their outreach program, and they had told us some about it, how they would go about it, and the registry process It'll also include a certification so that if you specialize in, let's say, groundwater and sewerage, if you become certified, again, that would be on your credentials within this list. And it would allow people to come to you, and it would actually promote business for these contractors who become certified in weatherization. Very important, because when a lot of our older Vermonters look to weatherize their homes, they really are kind of at a loss as to where to go. So having a list of certified weatherization providers would be very important for folks right now to get their homes weatherized in a good fashion. I mean, and I made that point, you know, the wrong person hired to do that, you know, can create mold and can create in your home if it's not, if your insulation isn't installed properly, and all these bad things can happen as a result of some bad weatherization. So it's very important to make sure that you've got someone who's got some credentials who can, do this in a fashion in which it will do what it's designed to do and weatherize your home and make it warmer for our older Vermonters and more comfortable. Turn the thermostat, conserve fuel. I mean, all of these aspects of weatherization that can come through will that are known will be part of this, and hopefully we'll get it done.
Can I just ask one follow-up?
Sure.
That just made me think of when you said weatherization, sorry. So are like HVAC contractors included in this?
I'm not familiar with the term.
Heating, ventilation, air conditioning?
No, anyone who holds a license. Now, I'm not sure that
They need to be hold up.
Okay, anyone who holds a license is not required to register because they're licensed.
I see. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
That it goes into, capabilities and reliability and all kinds of things beyond just a registry.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
If they're licensed, they don't need to register.
Good to know.
Yep.
Exciting.
Yeah. Exciting.
Finish line's good.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments or anybody want to share anything before we adjourn today?
Oh, did you share about H-153?
Why don't you do that?
I don't know. Okay, H-153, it was a last year's bill, one around Medicaid rates and looking at that for home and community-based service providers. Senate Health and Welfare has it scheduled for vote. I haven't checked today whether, I think it was for Thursday maybe. So they are hopefully, fingers crossed, going to vote that out of committee today, and then it's headed to appropriations, which will, Senate appropriations is always a challenge.
Markup on Friday morning.
Friday now, okay. Yes, Jim.
So I understand on the House side, we're looking at about 7%.
On the House side, the budget includes 7% base increase in Medicaid rates, yes.
Jane Kitchell was determined to get it to 10.
Yeah,
She's told me that a few times.
I'm curious if we have any insight on how the Senate will really.
That's their intention.
To go to 10?
Yes.
That's yes.
To get to 10.
I think it's.
The trade-off might be lower child tax credit.
And the IRS is giving 3,600 this year, which is the child tax credit is increased this year, so
That ends.
it's okay.
Doesn't that end?
No.
I thought it ended June 30th or something.
They're pushing it again, and you can go back 3 years, so you can chase it for 3 years. So
Yep.
if that helps, I mean, not that I want to take money out of child tax credit, but I'm just saying. if it helps.
Let's not pit older people against children.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, so yes, I mean, the one thing that I do want to say, we've often talked about how home and community-based services and how providers and advocates needed to come together with one message. And I can tell you that the result of that exactly happening this year, okay? So designated agencies, Cove, whether it's area agencies on aging, whether it's the residential care providers, everybody came together, okay? And I don't know how purposefully it was done, but everybody said 10%. Everybody gave their stories around that, and that had a dramatic impact rather than designated agencies saying we need one thing and AAA saying we need another thing. And it really did have an impact. Yeah, Ruby.
I can give you a little background on that. It was incredibly intentional. And Cove
I
has
figured it was.
Yes, Cove has been facilitating a group called the Long-Term Care Crisis Coalition that is made up of everyone in the elder long-term care network. So residential care, nursing home, adult days, AAAs, Alzheimer's, other advocates, visiting nurses, and we all really came together. I'm sure there are some that I'm forgetting. I apologize if you're on there and I forgot. And we all came together and really spent at least a month, probably 2 months, figuring out what was the appropriate ask that met everybody's needs and came together on that. Additionally, we're really hoping to carry that work forward. So, you know, understanding that the funding is part of it, but there are other challenges that we're going to be facing in the future. So we're hoping that the coalition will be able to carry on that work moving forward and have a more connected and coordinated approach to our advocacy.
That's great. Thank you.
Could I just say, Mary Alice Bixby, that I would love to be on that committee because I'm a hospital nursing home social worker long-term, and healthcare is really what I'm interested in. And I did want to say that I'm still concerned that our Medicare trust fund is going down, and we need to contact our national legislator, the Congress, about doing something about what's happening to Medicare as it's being privatized.
Yes.
Totally privatized.
Okay.
They say by 2030, there will be no regular Medicare. And the CMS Innovation Project is headlining this. They want to do it themselves.
Okay, any other quick comments here?
Gotta wrap up.
Just really quick, I
Yeah.
would say
We
that,
have to get back to committee. Yeah.
I just would like to say that the child care, the child tax credit, actually, they're really pushing that it's the grandparents who are taking care of children apply for that. So it's
Great.
bumping heads.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Have a great afternoon. Hopefully you get outside. Nice walking over here.
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and I'll follow up on those questions.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a great week, everybody.